Here's something most B2B SaaS founders get wrong about their buyers. You think the sale starts when someone books a demo, but by the time they book the demo, they've already spent 20 plus hours researching. They've already formed an opinion, and they've already narrowed it down to 2, maybe 3 options. We know this because Winter just surveyed 100 CFOs and VPs of finance and asked them to walk through the entire vendor selection process step by step. And 71% described the research phase that happens entirely without vendor involvement. You have no idea what they did during those 20 hours. You just don't know what they searched for, what they read, who they asked, or what conclusions they draw. But I do, and you know why? I've watched this happen hundreds of times across dozens of SaaS companies. I'm Frank Husband, and I run a B2B SaaS marketing agency focused on founder-led GTM. But I'm not just some marketer who read a bunch of case studies. I owned and sold my own SaaS company, so I've been on both sides of this. And in the next minutes, I'm going to walk you through what buyers are actually doing when they're not talking to you. Not a framework, not a funnel diagram, the actual behaviors, the Google searches at midnight, the screenshots they're sending to their boss, the questions they're asking ChatGPT. Because if you don't know what they're doing, you can't show where it matters. Most buyer journey maps are actually broken. They start with awareness, but buyers don't wake up one day and think, you know what? I should explore new software today. They wake up because something is broke. The trigger is always one of 4 things. It's a time or money drain. We're spending 15 hours a week on this manual process and it's getting worse. Or something went wrong. A security breach, missed targets, failed audit, lost a key customer, or not enough new hires coming in the door. It can also be that someone got yelled at. A board meeting, a client escalation, a quarterly review where the numbers didn't add up. And the 4th one is the new sheriff. A new executive just got hired, a new CMO, a new head of sales, a new VP of operations. They have 90 days to show impact and they're bringing their tech stack with them. They already know what works because they used it at their last company. And this last one is different. It's not pain-based, it's ambition-based. But it's just as powerful because new executives move fast with tools they trust. And that's the trigger. It's almost always emotional before it's rational. A VP of sales doesn't start researching CRMs because they read a thought leadership post about modern revenue operations. No, they start because their CEO just asked why win rates are down 15% and they didn't have an answer. So what do you do next? In those first 72 hours after the trigger, something critical happens. And remember, according to Winter's research, 71% of this happens entirely without you. They ask peers before they Google anything. Before they check your website, they text a former coworker. They post in the Slack community. They DM someone on LinkedIn. Hey, random question. What are you using for X? This is the most trusted source. Not your case studies, not your reviews, the peer who has nothing to sell them. And if no one in their network has heard of you, you're not in consideration. And this is why founder visibility matters. It's not vanity, it's distribution. They Google it, not your product category, not your brand name. They Google their problem. Why are our sales rates dropping? How to track deal velocity in manufacturing. If you're not visible when someone's searching for the problem, you don't exist at the moment that matters most. They ask ChatGPT or Claude, and most founders haven't adjusted for it yet. Buyers are asking LLMs to explain the problem, suggest approaches, even recommend categories or solutions. And if your expertise isn't embedded in how AI models explain your category, you don't exist in this conversation. They also check G2, not just your star rating. They're reading reviews to understand the trade-offs. By the end of this phase, opinions have formed. A mental shortlist is taking shape. And according to Winter, 50% of finance leaders evaluate exactly 3 vendors. And if you're not on that list of 3, the process moves forward without you. And here's what drives me crazy. Everyone says create great content and they'll come, but that's just BS. Great content that your buyer never sees is worthless. The companies winning right now aren't creating the most content. They're visible in the specific places buyers actually look when they're in research mode. Peer networks, problem stage searches, LinkedIn feeds, AI-powered research, review sites. And if you're not there, you just don't exist. So they've done their research. They've narrowed it down to 3 vendors based on fit, reputation, and peer recommendations, not your sales team's pitch. Now what are they doing? They're watching your competitors' founders' videos. Not product demos yet, your founder talking about why the old way of doing things is broken. If your founder isn't out there explaining the problem in a way that makes the buyers think, holy crap, that's exactly what we're dealing with, someone else's founder is. Our client Matthijs from Unit saw this firsthand. He started sharing his perspective on community software through short LinkedIn videos. Within 1 month, he got invited to 2 expert panels where his ideal clients were attending. And why does that matter? Because when someone in that room triggers on the problem he solves, his name comes up. Oh, let's talk to Matthijs. He was on that panel. He knows his stuff. So they're comparing you against competitors. They're using LLMs. They're literally asking ChatGPT, compare your company versus competitor A versus competitor B. And if you haven't shaped that narrative, if your positioning isn't clear, if your differentiation isn't obvious, the AI is going to give them a generic feature comparison. And you'll sound like everyone else. And here's another example. Tom is the founder of Clock Assist. He was running strategic founder-led campaigns, and he started getting intense signals, insights about which firms were actively researching and comparing options. And his sales team stopped doing cold outreach. They started having conversations with people who'd already been thinking about the problem based on those signals. And those conversations were completely different. Not, let me convince you about this problem, but let me show you how we solve it. Let's say you're on the shortlist. You're one of the 3, but they're not booking demos yet. And this is where most founders get ghosted and don't know why. Because before they schedule that demo, they've already done more research. They've researched your product specifically. They've gone through your website. They've watched your product videos. They've read your documentation if it's public. They've checked your reviews again, but now they're reading it differently. They're not looking for reasons to disqualify you. They're looking for signals about what it's really like to work with you. And they're not reading the 5-star reviews. They're reading the 3-star reviews to find the real issues. Great product, but the support is slow. Good for startup, but doesn't scale. Pricing really went up after year 1. If you're not actively managing this narrative, if you're not responding, if you're not being transparent about trade-offs, you're letting anonymous reviews kill deals you'll never even know about. They're also asking peers about you specifically. We're looking at your company. Have you used them? What was your experience? And they've possibly asked an LLM to compare you against the other 2 finalists. And here's what one finance leader told Winter. I will typically already know if I'm going to purchase or not. I do not trust salespeople at all. And another one said, I need to be pretty familiar. I will almost never do a cold call with a sales team. And listen to this one. We compile our shortlist almost entirely without getting on a sales call with the vendors. These were actual statements from the research report. So this means the demo isn't the discovery step, it's a validation step. They're not coming to learn about you, they're coming to confirm what they already believe. So when buyers see you as the expert, not just a vendor, the entire conversation changes. You're not competing on features anymore, you're competing on perspective. And perspective always wins. Okay, the demo happened. And if you did your job right in phase 1 to 3, the demo was just confirmation. The sale isn't over, now comes the internal approval process. Pricing approval. Whether it's a negotiation or standard pricing, they still have to justify the spend internally. Procurement wants to understand the ROI, finance wants to see the business case, and if you haven't armed your champion with the language to defend the investment, if your marketing didn't give them the frameworks to explain why this matters, they're fighting an uphill battle. Then comes the IT and security review. According to Winter, 39% of finance leaders say this is a mandatory gate. Your product has to pass technical scrutiny. And if your documentation isn't clear, if your security page is buried, if you make IT dig for answers, you're creating friction that kills momentum. Then the legal review, your contract terms, your data policies, your SLA commitments, all of it gets reviewed. Then the executive sign-off. Your champion has to sell this up the chain, to their boss, sometimes to the board. And if your content didn't give them the confidence, if they can't articulate why your approach is different, why the trade-offs make sense, they can't close it internally. And this is why content that educates the market isn't fluffy brand work, it's giving your buyer the ammo they need to convince their boss. When a buyer shows up at a demo and says, yeah, I saw your video on why traditional approaches create more risk than they prevent, that's not a nice to have. That's a qualified buyer who's already 80% sold. They just need to confirm what they already believe. The Winter research makes this brutally clear. The real competition happens in phases 1 to 3. That's where you win or lose. By phase 4, the demo, you're either already on the shortlist or you just don't exist. Your website, your LLM presence, your reviews, your peer reputation, that is the sales process right now. The demo is just a closing argument. And the uncomfortable truth is, most B2B SaaS companies only show up in phase 4, when the buyer is ready to talk to sales. By then, you're just competing on price and product specs with 2 other vendors who also made it to the shortlist. The companies that win are the ones who show up in phase 1, when the trigger happens, when someone asks their peer, when they Google the problem, when they ask ChatGPT. And if your founder, your content, and your perspective isn't there, you're not in the game. Marketing isn't about being visible when buyers are ready to buy. It's about being useful when they're trying to figure out if there's even a problem worth solving. Sales confirms the decisions. It rarely creates them. A company that educates first becomes the default choice. In the next video, I'm going to show you why some SaaS teams create real demand while others just stay busy. And it's not about posting more or spending more. It's about a fundamental difference in how to think about what marketing is supposed to do. If this changed how you think about where your marketing should show up, please subscribe. I'll keep unpacking how SaaS founders build GTM that actually compounds. I'm Frank Hussman, and I'll see you in the next video.